Hello everyone. With Max going on a well-earned vacation, he asked that I step in as a guest to address his amazing audience. For anyone who does not know, I'm the Dean of Gaming University. My channel focuses on games rich in story and themes. Primarily, this includes anything by Remedy such as Control or Alan Wake, as well as psychological games such as Hellblade and of course, Psychonauts. I've been talking to Max over the last several weeks as he plays through Psychonauts for the first time, so I thought this would be a great game to focus on with this guest video. With the sequel being released after a 16-year hiatus, it is great to see a wave of new fans coming into the franchise. Throughout this video, I want to explain why I feel Psychonauts is one of the most important games I've ever played. Released by Double Fine in 2005, Psychonauts at its roots is a game about people. How our experiences shape the way our minds work and engage with the world around us. We assume the role of Rasputin Aquato, a circus performer who is forced to hide his psychic abilities from his family. After being given a pamphlet for Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp, he runs away from home. The camp turns out to be a training facility for young psychics that is operated by the international spy organization known as Psychonauts. In the first act of the game, Raz is pulled into the mind of the counselors and put through mental constructs designed to train them on basic skills like levitation and psyblast. However, after several of the children show up with their brains stolen and the counselors go missing, Raz takes a side portal and goes to investigate. When I say this game is about people, I mean that almost literally. Every dungeon of the game is a mindscape of a character, their inner world being projected into a three-dimensional construct. These worlds include things like emotional baggage and vaults designed to hide away traumatic memories. These vaults allow Raz to learn what happened to them to make them the way they are. In the first act of the game, the minds he visits are largely stable. While there is trauma in their past, they have found ways to cope. However, upon crossing the lake to Thorny Tower's home for the disturbed, this changes. The people here are psych patients, all displaying outward signs of mental illness. This is when the game takes off. Upon meeting the patients, each displays unique conditions such as violent mood swings or delusional episodes. Rather than treating them like people to be avoided or feared, Psychonauts takes a more sympathetic approach. It asks the question, what is going on in their heads that created their problem? What life history did they experience which influenced how they ended up where they are now? And is there anything we can do to help? A person's external behavior is dictated by many variables which are unknown to us. Mental vaults give Raz a peek into their past, and their mental worlds inform us how their mind works. It could be said our outside behavior is based upon a certain formula. Anyone familiar with my channel will know I have a habit of making philosophical connections between unrelated things. Years back, I was sitting at a sushi bar with my friend and came up with the idea of human behavior and how it can be distilled down to a mathematical formula. The root of all equations in algebra is f of x equals y. I'm sure everyone has heard of it. So let's take a moment and break down what I mean by this and how it applies to the aforementioned topic of human behavior. X is a variable of input, y is output, and f is the function. I'm sure you've heard your math teacher use the example that you place x into a function box and it spits out y as a product. Our outward behavior in this metaphor is the y value, the output, the external expression of our actions and behaviors. Overall, it describes how we engage with people and the world around us. More specifically, it is how others perceive us. The Whispering Rock counselors appear well-adjusted, while the Thorny Tower's patients appear unstable by contrast. While Raz may be able to dive into the mind of another, the rest of us can only witness the y value of a person. This brings us to our next variable. The x value is tied to the nurture aspect of human development. The world around us helps to shape who we are. An individual who grew up with all of their needs taken care of will act differently than one who has to struggle daily for a meal. Strife and trauma is something everyone has dealt with in one form or another. The personal unconscious is a library that records every experience, emotion, and fantasy. Millions of input variables are thrown into this function box in our minds and influence how we act. From an outside observer, we are incapable of knowing what another person's X values are. Unless we are intimately familiar with another, their history is a mystery to us. it may be hard for us to understand another's actions because we can only understand things through our personal history and life experiences. The mental vaults show us a few significant X values from the character's past. This leaves us with the machine itself, or function. The purpose of a factory is to take raw materials, or X values, put them through a unique process, and kick out a Y value, or output. This unique process is the way that the individual mind functions. Two people may experience the exact same event, but react in radically different ways. This is because their mental machine acts differently. The mindscapes that serve as Psychonauts levels gives us the best representation of these internal machines. Bringing this idea back to the main point, Rasputin comes across a wide range of personalities. Some appear stable, while others don't. However, after examining them, some form of trauma can be found with all of them. So why are some okay and others not? Simply put, in some of them, the mental function is not operating properly. This can result from genetics, chemical imbalances, or learned behavior creating poor coping mechanisms. Sometimes it is possible an engineer can jump in and fix the machine. By doing so, even with the traumatic past, these minds could learn to properly regulate themselves. This is exactly what Rasputin does throughout the course of the series. After observing the behavioral output, he dives into their minds and becomes an engineer. Instead of fixing it himself, however, he helps them learn how to fix it for themselves. As an example, let us take this idea and apply it to one of the characters in the game. I will try to keep the spoilers to a minimum, but nonetheless, spoilers ahead. Compton Boole experienced a series of events in his life that led to severe anxiety and lack of self-confidence. He feels he is incapable of doing anything for himself, relying on others to aid him. This leads him to feel like others are judging him constantly. This is his behavioral Y value, the external expression of his personality. After diving into the mental world, Compton and Raz find themselves in the middle of a cooking game show, where they must serve up a series of meals to 3 judges. These judges are sock puppets animated by unknown hands. This mental world is a symbolic representation of his self-judgment and anxiety issues. Or in other words, this is how his mind functions. While mental vaults are present that detail 2 specific sources of trauma, I won't discuss them in case anyone has not played them. Let's just say that these are the input values or the seeds that sprout into his problems. With Raz in the mind, it is time to try and teach Compton to win the cooking show on his own. In doing so, it may help his anxiety and judgment problems. At first, Compton shuts down, relying solely on Raz to deal with the challenges. However, with each successful round, Compton gains more and more confidence. Within the final boss fight, he is forced to cook on his own, and these meals are what ends up defeating the judges. Upon doing so, Compton pulls the sock puppet off his own hand, revealing he was the one judging himself. He spent all this time assuming everyone looked down upon him, thinking him incapable of anything without their help, when in fact, he was the only one who thought this. Raz aided Compton in repairing his own mental machine. Despite the trauma still being present, his mental factory is now able to properly process it so that it does not affect the final product. In my opinion, Psychonauts acts as a fantastical guide to self-examination. By observing various ways the minds of these characters can work, we can take a look at ourselves and wonder if any of this applies to us. I've taken the last year or so breaking down each and every mental world from the first game, attempting to isolate the root conditions and behavioral patterns of the characters. If you're interested in checking these out, links will be provided below. Throughout the course of this work, I cannot express how many viewer comments I've received telling me how Psychonauts has helped them better understand themselves. Between smiling depression and learned helplessness, there is something everyone can relate to here. I will leave this video off with these final thoughts. Within the metaphor presented above, the output expression of general unhappiness results from negative experiences as well as a mental machine not running optimally. Most of us attribute this unhappiness solely on the input. The world outside of us is what is causing it, so if we can change the world, we will be happy. Sometimes we can influence our surroundings in small ways. Sometimes we are unable to make any changes. In my experience, the attempt to change the external world does not always reflect upon greater happiness. In my opinion, this is because while focusing outside of ourselves, we tend to neglect the inner world, which is just as vast and complicated as the external. By refusing to look inward, we allow our happiness to be dictated by things that are largely out of our control. In life, we don't need a psychic to jump inside our heads to fix our inner world. All it takes is introspection, understanding of what you find there, and the will to make mental changes if it is warranted. By doing so, regardless of what the outside world throws at us, we have an inner world that is capable of finding joy. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more of this style of content, feel free to check out some of these videos or subscribe. Again, thank you all for joining and have a wonderful day.